Alright, book brats, it's time for a full summary of the book, Throne of Glass. For all my merch, music, and other content, hit the link in the description. So let's just start at the beginning and go from there. By the way, spoiler alert. Meet Delilah Bard. Meet Celaena, a bratty assassin who's a cross between Katniss, Hermione Granger, and Amelia Bedelia. She's supposed to be the greatest assassin in the land, but she's currently mining material for the next iPhone in this place called Endovier. So she's living her life in this prison mine thing, and this guy named Dorian shows up. He goes to her and says, hey, we're having this little assassin competition. I want you to be on my team because after all, you're more famous than the Hawk-Tuah girl, but honestly, a little bit more mysterious because nobody knows your name. Nobody knows who you really are. So Celaena's like, what do people think my name is then? And he's like, I don't know. Anyway, come with me, and if you win this little assassin competition, my daddy will let you go free in 6 years. But then he's like, I'm so cool that I could talk my daddy down to 5 years. And she's like, how about 3 years? He's like, how about 4 years? And she's like, all right, fine. So she agrees to go. So Celaena and Dorian and some other people start making their way to this place called Riftold, which is the capital of this place called Otterland. That's how it's pronounced, Otterland. So you're thinking in your mind, oh, it's Otterland, right? A land of otters is probably frolicking and flowers and fun, but that's not how it's spelled. It's actually spelled Adarlan. Adarlan. So that's what I'm going to call it. They're also traveling with this guy who spells his name Chaol and they pronounce it Kaol. And I'm thinking, why do you do this to me? Why do you mess up my brain? So we're just going to call him Chol. So Chol is actually the captain of the King's Guard. Side note, I've been watching House of the Dragon Season 2, and there's a character that I and presumably every other person on this planet hate, and it's the captain of the King's Guard, Kristen Cole. My stupid, simple male brain is combining those two into the same person. So when I read Chol, I'm thinking of Cole, and so it kind of ruins the character, but here we are. Then cut to someone's tongue clicking, and all of a sudden, all of the PTSD from the A Court of Thorns and Roses series hits me right in the face, and I'm like, I don't think I can do this anymore. So they have to cut through this forest to get to Adarlan, but on the way they have this conversation about the things of the past. Celaena learns that this entire place used to be filled with magic, fays, fairies, and all kinds of stuff. But unfortunately, the king of Adarlan has outlawed magic. So it's basically like that dry county town that you grew up in where you couldn't find any alcohol because no one sold it. So they eventually get to Adarlan, and in Adarlan is this thing called the Glass Castle, hence the name. And I don't know exactly when this happens, but at one point Dorian looks at Celaena and says, you know what? I don't want anybody to know your real name, so let's just call you Lillian. And that got really weird as I was reading the book, because sometimes she was Lillian, and sometimes she was Celaena, and most of the time I was confused. Then Dorian bickers with his daddy, who is the king of Adarlan. Several named Selene finds a library and gets all giddy and says, I love books! And I'm thinking, of course you do. Why wouldn't you? So Celaena asks if she can read the books, and they're like, no. And she's like, well, shucks. So she writes a letter to Dorian, because I guess she can't walk down the hall to it. Why are you making this more complicated? So Dorian gets the letter and says, yeah, that's fine, but read this stack of books first. Then Celaena goes with all the other competitors in this assassin contest to see the king. Then the king looks out at all the assassins and says, some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I'm willing to make. Then several named Selene meets this jerky chick named Kaltane, which is basically just a fancy way to say Caitlin. And then Chol starts training several named Selene, and I'm thinking, are we having a Cassian and Nesta situation here? And Chol tells Celaena to not draw too much attention to herself so she can just slide under the radar and eventually win the whole thing. And then she meets one of the other assassin competitors named Nox, and I'm thinking, ooh, is that a love interest? Is that the one that knocks her up? And then Celaena meets a princess named Nehemia. Her name is actually spelled like Nehemiah, but without the final H. And I was going to get on here and say her name was Nehemiah, just for poop and giggle. But I fell in love with this character by the end of book 2, and I will not dare disrespect her like that. And then one of the competitors, whose name was the Eye Eater, because I guess he ate someone's eye, I don't know, anyway, he dies, and no one knows why. So all the assassins are there, all the competitors are there, and they have their first task. And I'm thinking, ooh, what are we doing? Red light, green light? Huh? A little bit of Squid Game action? What's going on here? But it's archery. And you may be thinking, ooh, archery at one another. No. At a target. So you have Celaena pretending to be someone else shooting bow and arrow at a target to win a competition. Just like the fox trying to win Maid Marian from the Lion King at the end of cartoon Robin Hood. Anyway, Celaena advances, but she doesn't get first place because she wasn't trying. Then they have some more training, and one of the competitors tries to escape, and then they kill him. Then Dorian has a conversation with his mom and says, hey, your brother's a deadbeat. When I die, will you take care of him? By the way, you should find a wife so you're not a loser as well. And he's like, Mom, stop. Then she says, what about that Nehemiah girl? Wouldn't you like to know her in the biblical sense? Get it? Because it's a Bible. I said I wouldn't disrespect her name like that. And then she gives Dorian a whole list of names because mothers have nothing better to do with their time than try to set their sons up with a suitor they think is fitting. But it turns out Dorian has a thing for several named Selene. So he finds her and he flirts with her. Nehemia is with Celaena while Dorian's trying to flirt with Celaena because they're friends now and they're trying to do some training. So Celaena tells Dorian, hey, he should spar off with Nehemia. And then Chol comes in and just ruins everything. Later, Dorian walks in on Celaena playing piano. Celaena is playing piano. It's a dirge, sad type of song. So Dorian comes in and turns on the Riz. Starts working, but then he rizzes a little too hard because she shuts down. And she tells him about her ex-lover named Sam, which means it's time to roll this conversation up because nothing's going to happen. And then the second task comes, and I'm thinking, ooh, maybe this one's a little harder. Maybe that first one was just a trial period, and the second one is the cut the shape out of the cookie, and if you break it, you get shot. But it's just climb this wall and get that flag. So I just pictured Mulan trying to get the arrow that cartoon hot guy shot. One of the contestants doesn't show up to the climb the wall event. And then somebody tries to push Nox off the wall and kill him. But Celaena comes to his rescue. And then someone else falls off and dies because who cares? Then later Celaena starts flirting with Chol and I'm thinking, ooh, we get a Team Edward, Team Jacob situation going on here. And then we find out the contestant that didn't make it to climb the wall was murdered. Randomly. Then a couple more tasks happen, and you may be asking, oh, what were they? I don't know. The book is not specific. It skips ahead a lot. And then Celaena finds a secret passage that no one knows about in her room behind this curtain thing. And this secret tunnel actually leads to outside, and I'm thinking, oh, you can run away. Do your thing, girl. Be free. Spread your wings. But she doesn't. So she goes back to her room and she has this weird dream where she talks to a dead queen who says there's something evil lurking in the castle and you need to get rid of it. Then another contestant is murdered randomly. Oh, I forgot to mention there's also some magical graffiti that she finds on certain things and she doesn't know what it is, so she's trying to figure that out. So she goes to the library and tries to Hermione her way to the answers, and eventually she finds out that these things are called word marks. Meanwhile, fancy Caitlin is macking on Dorian because she wants to be a prince's wife. Also, one of the contestants' name is Cain, and he's the bad guy in the book. And you may be asking, is he the bad guy at the end of the book? Oh yeah, he's the bad guy from start to finish. There are 0 plot twists in this book. So Cain confronts Lillian, who's actually Celaena, and he says, I know who you really are, Lillian. You're Celaena. And she's like, oh snap. Also, Celaena finds out that the reason people are dying is because there's a basilisk under the castle. Then someone else is murdered by the basilisk. Then there's this guy named Duke Parrington who goes dark-eyed while he's looking at a ring, and Chol sees that. And then Celaena has another dream featuring the dead queen, and the dead queen tells her how to beat the next task, which is essentially a liquid buffet or something. Dorian gives Celaena a puppy. Then 3 more contestants die from the mysterious basilisk creature, so there's only 6 left now. Celaena finds the magical graffiti in her own room now. Oh no, what could that mean? And this whole time Nehemia and Celaena have been bonding and now they're best friends, but all of a sudden Celaena finds out that Nehemia has been lying about some stuff and now she feels like she can't trust her. So now Celaena thinks that Nehemia is the basilisk, or knows the basilisk, or is working with the either way she suspects her for the murders. And then cut to Christmas. Celaena wakes up to a big bag of candy in her room and she just eats it. I'm thinking, girl, you're supposed to be the greatest assassin in Adarlan and you're just eating random bags of candy? What if it's poison? What is wrong with you? No question. She's just like, oh, it's got my name on it. I'll just have one. So she eats all the candy, gets it all over her face. It turns her teeth red because apparently she's also a toddler. And then Dorian walks in and says, hey, girl, I'll be your gift. And then he sees her teeth and he's like, you know what? Never mind. And then she goes to a Christmas church service, but she falls asleep. But then Chol wakes her up like a father with his arm on the back of the pew, thumping his children. And then we find out that Celaena is not invited to the Yule ball that they're having in the Great Hall. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, you're just bringing up more Harry Potter references for comedic relief. No, I'm not. That's exactly what they say in this book. But she puts on this beautiful dress and sneaks into the Yule ball. Dorian sees her coming down the stairs like Ron saw Hermione in Goblet of Fire. Also, everyone's wearing masks at this party because apparently Sarah J. Maas loves masks and overusing descriptive terms. Then Celaena starts dancing with Dorian, and Fancy Caitlin gets upset about it. And then Dorian and Celaena kiss. Oh, finally. But who really cares, because there was no build-up and the whole relationship doesn't make sense at all. And then Dorian tells Celaena, hey, your dog needs a name. What about Goldie? Because he's golden. She's like, I don't like that. And I'm thinking, that's valid. That's a terrible name. You could probably come up with something better. And then she proceeds to name the dog Fleetfoot. Oh yeah, it's way better. Then Fancy Caitlin learns who Celaena really is. Then Duke Parrington tells Fancy Caitlin to poison the wine of Celaena when she's in her final task. Then Several Named Selene gathers all the information she has about the magical graffiti, about Nehemia, about the basilisk, and she goes through the secret tunnel in her room. While she's down there, she finds a secret chamber. I'm not joking, by the way. This book might as well be called Celaena Sardothian in the Chamber of Secrets. And in this secret chamber is Cain with the basilisk that he brought into the world through the magical graffiti. It's not really a basilisk. It's like a demon dog monster thing, but who cares? It might as well be a basilisk. So Celaena sees the basilisk, and this is the most powerful creature in the book so far because it's what's killing all the assassins. So of course she just kills it pretty easily. But in the process, she gets poison bit. So Dumbledore sends in his phoenix to cry over her. So she runs back to her room and Nehemia heals her. Celaena ends up telling Nehemia who she really is and why she's really there. Then Nehemia says, you know what? Names are important and I like you. I'm going to give you another name. It's like Alinthia, I don't know, who cares? It doesn't really matter. And I'm thinking the whole time, oh great, another name to keep up with. Then Celaena tells Nox about Cain and the basilisk, but she doesn't tell anybody else for some reason. And then we get down to the final task, which is a duel. Finally, something interesting. Everybody's dueling, and then it gets to the final two, which is, you guessed it, Celaena and Cain. But unfortunately, Fancy Caitlin poisoned Several Named Selene's wine right before the duel. And again, I'm thinking, you just eat random bags of candy without asking what they are. You drink wine without smelling it. How are you an assassin? So she's fighting Cain, but the poison hits, and then she starts hallucinating. So Chol and Dorian, along with everybody else, are watching her struggle, and I'm thinking the whole time, why is no one doing anything? And then the book starts flipping back and forth between reality and her hallucinations, which is essentially the upside down from Stranger Things. It gets really confusing, and the dead queen shows up and starts talking to her. Cain's also there talking to her. Long story short, she beats Cain. So now she's the king's champion and she won the whole tournament. Cain gets upset and tries to kill Celaena, but Chol is there to stab him. And then Duke Parrington sells out Fancy Caitlin, so they drag her down to the cellar prisons. Nehemia talks to Celaena about how the poison must have opened up her vision to see the upside down, which is something that Nehemia can also see because somehow she's magical too. And after it's all said and done, Celaena puts Dorian in the friend zone. And I'm thinking, I feel you, bro. And the book ends with Chol and Celaena talking. Long story short, this was not a very good book. Don't get me wrong, the story was interesting, but the writing was just, ugh. So be mad if you want, but I have to give it 2 stars. Stay tuned for the next video.